EJ Marin, welcome to the Human Capital Innovations Podcast.
Oh, thank you, Jan.
Yeah, I'm super excited to have the conversation with you today. We've been preparing for this episode for a while, and you have a lot of expertise along the lines of where a lot of my interests and passions lie. You do a lot of work with organizational design, and I think organizational design is a foundation to a successful and effective organization, and the effective management of people within an organization is often overlooked, in my experience, particularly with young startups and companies that are trying to scale. Oftentimes the workplace design and the organizational design elements are kind of an afterthought as opposed to a foundational strategic piece to building the organization. And couple that with, now we're in the middle of this pandemic and so many workers have gone to a virtual kind of flexible work from home arrangement. And soon, hopefully, we'll be coming out of the pandemic. It raises the question, what changes to organizational design do we expect to see coming into the future? And how might that fit with a virtual workforce or a hybrid workforce? And so those are some of the topics that we'll be discussing together today. As we get started, I just wanted to read EJ's bio for everybody. EJ Marin is Nakisa's head of solutions engineering in human capital management, has over 25 years of experience in ERP technology and HCM management. Prior to joining Nakisa, he worked for SAP America and SAP SuccessFactors with key roles including engineering architect and Latin America and the Caribbean regional service delivery leader. In these roles, he led various customer experience improvement initiatives and service deliveries. Now at Nakisa, EJ is a subject matter expert on business transformation through organizational design and leads the Center of Excellence, business development, and the pre-sales team to discuss customers' business challenges and create enterprise solutions. What a wonderful background, great expertise. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast today. Anything you would like to share by way of background or personal information before we really launch into the conversation?
Oh, on the personal note, I'm also very passionate about these HR topics. So that's for sure. I mean, I think talent and people is the cornerstone of the times we live in today. How to unleash the talent of everybody, I think that's a priority for any company. On the personal note, for everybody, right? So yes, looking forward to have this conversation. This looks like the place I want to be right now.
Excellent. Yeah, and I couldn't agree more. HR topics, organizational leadership topics are what get me up every morning. And I just love having these conversations with leaders and professionals and researchers, you know, everyone who works in this space. I think it's wonderful for us to share with each other so that we can improve the situation, the lives and the experiences of workers and leaders within the workplace. Now, as we get started, I would love to just hear, first of all, a little bit more about your company, Nakisa, and then let's open it up broadly and talk about organizational design and why that is so important. As I was kind of teasing at the very beginning in the introduction, in my mind, I've already laid out my bias. In my mind, it's an essential foundational piece that should be in any organization. And unfortunately, a lot of times I see it as an afterthought for many organizational leaders who may not have a lot of background or experience in HR areas or topics. So a little bit about Nakisa and then organizational design and why it's important, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So Nakisa is a global leader in enterprise business solution for organizational design and accounting and compliance. And we've been focusing in the last 20 years on delivering innovative and forward-thinking, robust human resources and financial management solutions. I'm responsible for the human resources side of the house, and we try to adapt and to bring advanced business strategies and things that are coming next, right? So we work with a global network of partners, and we serve more than 800 enterprise customers, over 4 million subscribers in 24 industries. We are proud to be ERP agnostic, so we focus on solving problems, not just providing technology. We're cloud-based, our solutions are cloud-based, and that allows Nakisa to meet the needs of organizations with complex business challenges. So Nakisa is proud to work with some of the world's most renowned brands. So in a nutshell, that's what we do. On the organizational design side, that's where I have spent my time lately. It's about bringing, I would say, before COVID, transformation and business change was a thing, right? Was something that people were and the business community was talking about. You can go back and read the Harvard Business Review reports. Of course, McKinsey and the big four they're big on business transformation, and they have their methodologies and their flavors to execute that. So before COVID, it was relevant, transformation and so on. With COVID, what we've seen is that companies suddenly they had to adapt, right? Nobody was prepared for the pandemic. Few organizations, even though there are business continuity books that talks about pandemics and how to react to them, not many people were prepared for the impact, the size and the time, of the impact of COVID. So everybody somehow has been affected. So now the organizations are in front of a problem that they need to solve. How do you go about solving the problem? If you see a spike on demand, right? You have a group of companies that are seeing a spike on demand. If you have to transform, maybe your demand is stable, but now you have to take your workforce remote because you cannot continue working on site, right? Or if you're seeing a down in your demand and you need to pivot, or you need to reinvent or redesign your offering so you can recover a little bit of that demand. If those business challenges, those changes in the marketplace, those are the things that are triggering organizational design. So I would say people are doing org design some way, somehow, formally or informally, I would say, in these days of COVID, because of the pandemic. You have to adapt. Everybody somehow, some way are adapting. So how to bring that dynamic, I would say, that maybe before was planned. Maybe you had a 1 year planning cycle, or for 3-5 years. How do you bring that dynamic of organizational design, workforce modeling, into a almost continuous basis? Because the market conditions are changing. So how do you do this continually? This is where we bring the org design concept. We want to automate that, make change of business transformation a routine, I would say. That's what we're trying to accomplish. Because it's very easy to do org design, and you can follow whatever methodology you like. You can do it in a paper. You can do interviews. You can bring your analytics, do your Excel, whatever. That part, I would say, is the easy part, quote unquote. Well, nothing is easy on the business world, but the definitions of the targets and what you want to accomplish, that part you can do whatever you want. But then to execute that vision, to transform into that future desired organization, that's the challenge. That's where before COVID, businesses, they had the challenge to transform. Transformation is also being a problem. I mean, change management, how do you change? If you want to change performance, if you want to increase performance in your organization, you have to change the culture. So it's just not about hitting numbers. It's also about changing mindsets, right? It's about changing the ways people are doing their work, changing the way they're compensated, changing the way they're collaborating, changing the processes within. So that's what all organizational design entails. So all those changes, how to make them a reality, that's where we come in. From Nakisa Solutions, analysts specifically, we try to automate all that part. So making that change feasible, faster, secure, and you can see the impact of your changes as you go in a collaborative way, involving everybody that needs to have a say on this new and on this future organization, and making sure that, when you have a new organization, a new org design, or a new target operating model, however you want to call it, you will have conflicting objectives. Finance will have their way to see these things. HR will have their way to see it. The COO will have their way. The line managers will have their own way of thinking about those changes. So how do you bring them all together to collaborate and be clear on the objective? Everybody has to have the same North Star that everybody should be looking at, but at the same time collaborating and making sure that the change you're doing, again, is going to generate better performance through that cultural transformation. So that's how we've seen that dynamic rolling out today.
Yeah, thank you for that overview of Nakisa and how you approach organizational design. And there's a lot that goes into organizational design. You think about organizational structural issues, and how, for example, how flat the organization might be versus how hierarchical. You think about job design, you think about job analysis, you think about change management issues, employee experience and culture. So all these different components go into this organizational design process. And exactly to your point, which was a very important one, is that the days of us having like a 3 or a 5 year rolling strategic plan, or approaching org design in that kind of a fashion, I think those days are over. We just have to be far more agile and pivot faster, and that requires an ongoing conversation. So whether it's using, software, through your company, or a similar types of software, other models that exist out there, ultimately, however you end up doing it, you have to make sure that you're having these conversations on a regular basis. And that's never been more highlighted than this year, or I guess in 2020, with the pandemic and with everyone having to make quick adjustments. Many organizations who may have dabbled in virtual work with some of its employees, they might have had a slight head start, but really very few organizations had an extensive work from home plan or virtual work plan. And pretty much everyone had to rethink what they were doing, why they were doing it, challenge their assumptions, and then come up with new solutions that would allow for everyone to work effectively. And when you think about this work from home dynamic, or this virtual work dynamic, how it ties into work collaborations, performance management issues. How do leaders monitor the work of their employees, or provide feedback or mentoring or coaching in an effective way when people are in a virtual environment? How do you effectively run virtual meetings, and so forth? Like, there's just all of these things, a big laundry list of things that organizations have had to think about. And I think largely, most organizations who survived, they've figured out how to at least make this work in the short term. The question remains, what will things look like as we start to emerge from the pandemic? And, some people are anxious to get back to work. They're, back to the physical office space. What does that mean for org design and work design with companies? And then what does it look like if we have some sort of an in-between hybrid approach, where you have some people working in the office, you have other people working virtually, or employees doing both on any given week? That just adds a level of complexity to all of these different HR issues, all these different employee experience issues, performance management issues, etc.
It is very interesting days. I think due to COVID, it has accelerated a lot of ways of trying new ways, I would say. Before COVID, the sentiment of remote work or working from home was around 60-70%, depending on who you look at, the studies of engagements. Now, after a year, we're looking between 80 to 90%. So companies who have engaged on remote work or work from home, they have been prepared for that, or have invested in that model, they see an uptick even in productivity. So they take advantage of the remote work. So, and the sentiment about it is positive. So from the management perspective, and from the employee perspective, it's positive. Of course, everything comes with its downsides, right? So now you have a workforce. If you are a tech company, maybe you can bring everybody, remote, like Twitter or Facebook. They've been saying, and that's no issue, because everybody will be in the same playing field. But what happened when you have part of the company that now have demonstrated that can work remote, but you still have part of the company or part of the department that has to go to the office or has to go on site, right? So how do you level the field for both workers, right? Because now you see that maybe one will feel that they have more flexibility than the other, et cetera, et cetera. So how do you make sure that both employee engagement are kept up high? That's the challenge that we're seeing with the enterprise. We also see that remote work, again, companies are seeing that increasing productivity in many cases, but we're also starting to see the burnout, or the virtual burnout, right? Is not natural to be talking to a camera, right? Even though you're seeing another person on a flat screen, the increase of stress, right? It just doesn't come natural, right? That
Yeah, I mean, Zoom fatigue is a real thing, and
yeah,
just the stress and the anxiety around constantly being on camera, having things recorded, trying to balance, your home obligations and
exactly.
duties with, doing work stuff when your kids are trying to do school, and like it's just messy, right? And it's not, you don't have such a delineated kind of separation between home life and work life.
Yeah,
And then when the camera's always on, then that can just cause extra stress.
we've been invited by our virtual world. So it's an invasion. So the virtual or cyber world is in our everyday now, everywhere, even more, right? So it was a reality before. Now it's just exacerbated. So and the other downside of this is also that you have, as you mentioned, right, the house dynamic. You have single parents. You have parents who take care of their elderly, for example, in their household. That brings other set of challenges, right? That also the companies, they starting to realize, and they're starting to provide support. So you have to check the employee engagement and employee productivity, and making sure that this can be sustainable in the long run. And that brings to your question, the next topic about the office space. So now the office space, even before COVID, it was being a question, all these, open space, and how productive or collaborative that open space was. So now companies also are starting to think, okay, how people are going to come back to the office space if they need to come back. How do we increase collaboration, right? How do we take the lessons learned from the virtual world and we bring it into the office? Can we do that? So there's a lot of conversations going around, okay, how the office space is going to look like after COVID. Of course, also you're seeing companies that are with the real estate, um, basically not using it, right? Should I go back to 50% of my real estate? Should I use it all? Can I reuse it all? Should I get rid of it? So all those conversations are happening as we speak, because again, many paradigms about remote work or working from home, I think was completely shattered. We can work, taking care of the employee, of their health and balance. We can do it. But okay, how do we go after COVID? How that reality is going to look like? I think that we're still going through those questions right now.
Yeah, I think so. And I think ultimately every organization is going to have to figure out for themselves what the appropriate balance is in terms of this new kind of hybrid work design arrangement for their people, right? And how do they maintain some level of consistency across employees in terms of the employee experience, engagement, motivation, accountability, right? When you have some people working completely 100% in person at the office, some working completely 100% virtually, and others in various levels of hybrid in between kind of a setup. And what I've been hearing too, and some of the research I've been doing has demonstrated that people don't want to even have to, like many people who want the hybrid approach moving forward, they don't even want to be locked in to like, I'm going to stay at home on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I'm going to go into the office Tuesday, Thursday, or, I'm going to whatever kind of arrangement that you could like set in place and then carry out over a course of weeks and months. Many people don't even want that. They want to be able to decide every week, like which days am I going to go to the office? Which days am I going to be at home? And while it's certainly doable, it does add a level of complexity. And will organizations be willing to add that level of flexibility? So if you have, a face-to-face brainstorming session, strategy meeting where you want everyone there in person, I'm going to go into the office that day, otherwise I'm going to be at home. I mean, what are the principles, the guiding principles around what's going to determine acceptable practice for each organization? I think that's the open question, and each organization is going to have to figure that out for themselves, and leaders will have to figure out what's going to work for their teams. So it'll be super interesting, I think, to see how this plays out in the coming months as things start to open up a little bit more and more people get vaccinated, things get a little bit more back to how they were before in terms of the openness in the economy. And I guess we'll just have to wait and see. EJ, we're approaching the end of our time together today. I'm just curious, as we get to the point of starting to wrap up, are there any major other pros or cons to a hybrid work arrangement that you haven't discussed already that you think need to be highlighted before we close today?
No, and I'm going to piggyback on what you just commented about how what are the expectations of people going back, and maybe the what's going to be the top priorities about fostering collaboration and productivity. So you're right, it's not about going to the office Monday, Wednesday, and Friday anymore. It's about, okay, how can I be more productive? Will I be more productive going to the office and having this meeting at the office with my coworkers so I can increase collaboration, I can look at their faces, we can whiteboard together, whatever? Or is it better I stay at home and do this, my part of the meeting from home, because I will be more productive, right? I think that's the type of dynamic that is going to come up. Now, the challenge for the enterprise, for the companies, is going to be, okay, what are the type of work that can take advantage of that mix experience, right? That's where org design, work design, job design comes into play, right? Now companies need to think about the work, like how to architect the work. How much of that work can be done on premise or needs to be done on a meeting room in an office space, or can be done virtually? How that dynamic, and also attend to the human need, right? As I mentioned, people are not 100% comfortable working from home. And we are starting to see the downside of that. But at the same time, they don't want to go to the old way, right? Every day, 9 to 5 in the office, required days and schedules in the office. That doesn't seem to make sense. I mean, and that sounds like ages ago, but this was just a year ago that we were working like that. So we need to find that. And again, the org design, I would say job design, workforce design, whatever you want to call it, needs to be architected in a way that takes advantage of this new reality that we already tested, that works, and that it increases productivity and collaboration.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, EJ, it has been a real pleasure talking with you today. I appreciate all of your insights and learning more about your company and what you're doing to try to help with this adjustment period, and really reinforcing the importance of organizational design and continuous conversations around org design to drive successful organizations. As we get close to finishing today, I just wanted to give you the last word and give you a chance to share with listeners how they can get connected with you, find out more about what you're up to.
So thank you, John. I appreciate all this time together. This was great. And yeah, you can reach out to nakisa.com or directly to my email if you have a question, ej.marin@nakisa.com. We're going to be rolling out a set of specific org design and workforce modeling webinars. So stay tuned. If you come back to nakisa.com, you can subscribe to our newsletter. You will get all these news and see where we are and what our customers are doing and so on. So stay tuned on nakisa.com, and yeah, thank you for the time.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. I encourage listeners to reach out, get connected with EJ and his company, find out more about what they might be able to do for you. And as always, I hope everyone stays healthy and safe, that you can find meaning and purpose at work each and every day. And I hope you have a great week.